Okay, good morning everyone. We're continuing Mishna Berura, Daf Hashavua, Siman Kuf Yud. We're in middle of Mishnah Berura Sivkat and Lamed. I do have to admit that there's a difficulty here in our practice. Namely, the Mechaber said there are a few qualifications to be able to say Tefillos Hadarach. You say it once you hit the road. You only say it if you're going to travel a Parsha, which is not a long distance. Well, it depends. If you're walking, it's a long distance. Less than a Parsha, you don't end off with a bracha. You should say it within the first Parsha, and if you forgot to say it, you should say it so long as you're on the road. As long as you're not within a Parsha samach to the city. So, is this an amount of time? Do you have to travel the amount of time it takes to go 4 mil? 72 minutes? No. The Mishnah Berura says in Sivkat and Lamed, there's no difference if you're on a boat or on the dry land, or if you're on a railroad. You make Tefillos Hadarach even if you're going only a Parsha. According to this, you should be careful that you should make Tefillos Hadarach right away as soon as the train takes off, because you should l'charchila be mahader to say it within the first Parsha. We said a Parsha is 8,000 amos, a mil is 2,000 amos. So what I don't understand is, we do this? If somebody takes a train to Manhattan, they say Tefillos Hadarach? If somebody drives from 5 towns to Brooklyn, you say Tefillos Hadarach? So you say, well, maybe there isn't a Parsha without any houses. Reb Chaim Kanievsky in many places brings, in Das Noite and Ela Betamar and Doilo Mashke and the name of the Chazon Ish, that even from one city to another that is attached with houses, you could say Tefillos Hadarach with a bracha. Because if you're in a Makam Sakana, even B'toy Chayir you could say it. And nowadays, there's always a issue of potential car accident. However, if Shlomo Zalman says Tefillos Hadarach was not enacted for car accident, it's because of listim, chayes rois. It was enacted because of open terrain without civilization. So they asked Shlomo Zalman, so what if you're driving through, an Arab neighborhood? He said, then you could say it, but not for car accidents. But I don't understand. People make Tefillos Hadarach if they take a train ride to Manhattan, or they drive from the 5 towns to Brooklyn, or they drive from Brooklyn to Staten Island. You ever heard of anyone making Tefillos Hadarach? It's more than 4 miles. If you drive from Flatbush to Staten Island, it's more than 4 miles. How long is the bridge? How long is the Verrazano Bridge? Anyone know? It's got to be over a mile, no? Somebody there have the info? How long is the Verrazano? I'm sure there's got to be a Parsha without houses, and I just don't see anybody speaking about this. Why do we not say Tefillos Hadarach? You don't need a 72-minute span, unless we're machmir that there can't be houses. In other words, there has to be a stretch where there are no houses. So that's not going to happen unless you drive from Brooklyn to like Lakeville or like outer space, one of those 2 places, But in other words, maybe we're machmir because of the houses. There are always houses, so it has to be the Verrazano Bridge is 13,700 feet.
4,000.
That's it? How is it a half a mile?
2.5 miles.
2.5, that's a Parsha. Parsha is 2.6 miles about.
It's 2.59.
What, a Parsha?
No, the Verrazano Bridge.
2.59?
Yeah.
Did anybody make a Tefillos Hadarach on the Verrazano Bridge? Why? Because the toll booth is a house, so from toll booth to toll booth is 2.59 miles, and it's not 2.6?
Why for the
Verrazano Bridge, can't we say that we're relying on the Seif here, that it's the same city, as opposed if you're crossing the George Washington or the outer bridge, that some people do make Tefillos at there.
Right. The thing is, how are you still in the city? You're not. When you cross the Verrazano, you're still in Brooklyn, or you're in Staten Island.
You're in New York City. How do we divide it up?
New York City.
There's a sign that says that you're leaving.
Yeah, it says, "Forget about it." Yeah.
Is the borough its own city, or is the city the city?
I would think a borough is a city. I mean, I would think Cedarhurst is a city, you know? I don't know. I would think...
It's connected with houses.
Yeah.
Why do you look at what it's called? Why don't you look at it, maybe it could...
I agree, but is Brooklyn connected with houses to Staten Island?
The water.
I think it's mafsik. Okay, anyway, I'm not sure. I once asked the Poisek, I said, "Can I ask you questions about Tefillas Hadarach?" He said, "No." He said, "I don't know anything about Tefillas Hadarach." I said, "Okay." So I'm not really understanding this. In other words, I understand an airplane, you're leaving the city. But Reb Chaim Kanievsky, so it's an interesting machlokes. According to Shlomo Zalman, you do need to be concerned if they're connected by houses. You can't just say Tefillas Hadarach for car accidents. Reb Chaim Kanievsky says you could say Tefillas Hadarach because of car accidents. Anyway, I think we have to look into this further. Fine. The Mishnah Berura says that Siv Katan Lamed Beis Aval Pachais, but if you're traveling then less than a parsa, you don't end off with a bracha. When somebody comes from the road within a parsa, minhag ha'olam shelo litain shalom. The minhag ha'olam is we don't greet him. We don't. The ein zeh mikri ba min hadarach. This is not called he came from the road. Ha'ein omer tefillas hadarach. Basically, if you want to know when to give someone a special greeting, it's if he traveled far enough to be able to say tefillas hadarach. Toich parsa, va'afilu im badaitoi, lisa oid achakach kam parsois me'ir zu, hu nesia b'fnei atzma. Means like this. The Mechaber is saying, if you forgot to say tefillas hadarach, you could say it so long as you're on the road, as long as you're not within a parsa of the city you're going to stay in. Even if after that city you're going to travel many parsois, but this leg is going to come to an end when you get to the city you're headed toward. So you can't make tefillas hadarach if you're within a parsa of the city you're headed toward. Sivches, hanichnas lebeis hamedrash, one who enters a beis hamedrash. Yispalel, yihiratzei milfanecha Hashem Elokeinu v'Elokei Aviseinu shaloi ekashal b'dvar halacha. Someone who enters a shul, he should to learn. He should say yihiratzei milfanecha Hashem Elokeinu shaloi ekashal b'dvar halacha. Uv'yitziyase, when he leaves, Yoimar moida ani l'fanecha Hashem Elokai shesamta chelki miyoshei beis hamedrash. Says the Mishnah Berura, hanichnas lebeis hamedrash. Ha'arizal haya oimra b'chol boiker. The Ariz said it every morning. V'haya oimer acher kach ki Hashem yitein chachma. For God gives wisdom. Mipiv das tesuna, from his mouth comes knowledge and understanding. Galei yinai v'abita neflois mitarasecha. Yispalel yihiratzem ofanecha. You should offer this tefillah. Ve'ein ba chasima, it does not end with a baruch. Kasav taz, du adin mi sheyoshev lomoid biyechidos. Likewise, someone who learns by himself, uvefradim higia lahira, especially if he reached the ability to paskin. Sarch lespalo shalayita belimod uvayra. He has to daven not to make a mistake in learning in a hira. Loimar al tametar ve'al aser mutar. It's good to say one short nusach that incorporates a lot. V'zehu yiratzim l'fanecha Hashem Elokai v'Elokei Aviseinu she'ta'ir einai b'ma'ar tarasecha v'tatzileni mikol michshav v'tais. Illuminate my eyes in the light of your Torah and save me from stumbling and mistake. Hein b'dinei yisr v'heter, whether it's laws of prohibited, permitted, hein b'dinei mamonos, hein b'hayra, hein b'limad. whether in psak or learning. Galeinai ankar mayas abitin fleis mitarasecha. Umasha shagisi kvar. And any mistake I made in the past, hamideni alames, set me on the truth. V'al tatsel mipi dvar emes ad ma'od. Do not remove from my mouth the true word. Ki Hashem yitain chachma. For God gives wisdom, mi piv das usvuna. When you learn with a group, you have to daven not to rejoice in their downfall, in their mistake, and they shouldn't rejoice in yours. Now, do people say this tefillah? Do you see people saying this tefillah when they enter a Beis Medrash and when they exit? Are you obligated to say this tefillah? Or is it just a nice thing to say this tefillah? Is it just recommended? Let's see, page 31. Okay, says the Rambam, says Mishna Kasav Rambam b'Perish HaMishna ve'elu shtei tefillos chayva. These two tefillos are obligatory. V'yesh lo espal yoshev emed, you say them sitting or standing, k'moshe yizdamin loy, as it comes to you. V'lo yachzer panav l'mizrach v'lo l'marav. Don't turn to the east or the west. V'lo yasesh tachavoya. Don't bow. Ayin sham ve'aviu el yarabo shari achreinim. And then when you leave, you say Moida Anil Fanecha. Vu'adin ha'isik batar bi'yichidos kol hayom. Likewise, somebody who is involved in learning themselves the whole day, tzarach loimer gamkein b'chol erev achar gemar limudai, needs to say this daily after their limud. So before you start learning, you need to say Yiratzim Fanecha, and after you start learning, after you learn, you say Moida Anil Fanecha. So why aren't people saying this tefillah? Are you saying this tefillah? What?
People say it.
People? What do you mean by people? Jewish people?
Yes.
Jewish people. So you're telling me Jewish people say this tefillah. What percent of Jewish people that you know say this tefillah? Did you ever take a formal Gallup poll?
No.
No. So
I feel like I'm on the witness stand, but
you are. This is serious business. So the Aruch HaShulchan is bothered. Why isn't anyone saying this tefillah? What happened to this tefillah? Why isn't anyone saying it? Let me see if I could pull something up here. Here we go. So, the Aruch HaShulchan says, nowadays the minhag is not to say it. Why? Says Aruch HaShulchan, people who learn in the Beis Medrash, they can't paskin. And the rabbi who knows how to paskin learns in his house. So the whole tefillah is hanichnas lebeis hamedrash, and he's going to be learning to offer psak. So miman of shach, it's not noigeya. The guy is learning in shul, they're learning daf yomi. And the guy who's paskening is learning at home. So the Aruch HaShulchan says achshav lo noagu bazeh. Even though the Mishabur brings from the Rambam that these two tefillos are a chayva, the Ritva says that the chiddush of Reb Nechunya ben Akana is that mi sharoitza loymar harshos v'yata. If you want to say this tefillah, you can. It's not a chiyuv. You're allowed to. In the Gemara Brachas Daf Yud Aleph and Beis, Hagois Re'em Horowitz brings that nowadays that we say Ahava Rabbah in the morning, that takes the place of the Yiratzin, and when you say Ahavas Olam at night, that takes the place of the Moedim. And therefore, it's not required to say these tefillos. However, the Stipler brings that he heard from the Chazon Ish that if you want to be matzliach in your learning, you should say the Yirat sign. Anyway, so that's interesting. Rabbi Sai, let us hold it over here, okay? We'll hold it here for today. Shkaya.
Rabbi Yeshiva K'tamen.